Hi, Jeff Ray here, President and CEO of South Bend Regional Chamber. We're continuing our candidate conversation. Today we're focusing on Mishawaka School Board at-large race. And with me today is incumbent school board member and candidate Dick Currey. Dick, welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for including me.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you spending some time just to help our folks better understand you. So you're familiar. You've been around the community, been on the school board for a little while. But just in case people don't know who Dick Currey is, give us just a quick background, some information on who you are.
Well, I'm a product of the Mishawaka schools. I came back in town to work as my professional life. I'm an attorney. And first became really involved with the schools other than being as a parent on things like the PTA back in late 1990s with the Education Foundation. I was on that board for 10 years, and then seeing what goes on in the schools and how important the school board was, I became a candidate for the school board in 2008. That was back when it was still fully appointed by the council, was appointed to a 4-year term. At the end of that term, I ran. I lost. I came in close third in a 10-candidate race. But after that, I still stayed involved with the schools for several years. Well, I served on the Chamber's Education Advisory Committee for, I think it was 4 years there. Also, the really meaningful part was I got involved in something called the Community Collaborating Committee here in Mishawaka, which was a group of concerned citizens that went out to the community to find out what the community wanted from its schools. And I co-chaired that with Marcia Wells, and we had about a dozen other people on the committee, and we conducted over 24 town halls talking with people about the issues that they thought the schools ought to know about. And we gathered a lot of useful information. We gave some recommendations to the school board, 15 of them, all of which were adopted, and formed the basis for a lot of the success that we're seeing today. Then back in 2016, I ran again, was elected, and now I'm running again to try to continue our good work.
Great, thank you. So Dick, let's talk school board for a second, just to help our folks understand the role. So what is it that a school board member is tasked with? Help us understand the role.
Well, we're not the superintendent. We don't run the school on a day-to-day basis. And actually, what people need to realize, the school board, it's a collaborative role. There isn't. We only actually can make decisions when we're together in a publicly advertised meeting, and we're representatives of the community. The purpose of the board is to set the school district's vision, the goals, and to prioritize those, to adopt policies that enable the district to achieve those goals, to hire, supervise, and evaluate the superintendent, which is the chief operating officer of the school corporation. We adopt and oversee the annual budget and the district's management of its resources, and function as a representative of the entire community in the operation of the district.
Great, thank you for that. So let's talk about you, and obviously the school board isn't a full-time position. You have a day job as well. Talk about the skills that you've obtained in your day job and how those work to help make you a good school board member.
Well, I'm an attorney, and so that involves in-depth evaluation of issues, and being able to see multiple sides of an issue before you make a decision, because there's typically more than one point of view on things, and all points of view are important and contribute to an understanding of issues. So that's always been a part of, that's part of my daily job is, identifying pertinent information, assembling it, interpreting it, and trying to come up with solutions that meet, immediate pressing needs. And also, it's not just the short term, what's going to happen tomorrow. I do mostly estate planning. So what I think, when I'm looking at working with my clients and thinking about the affairs that are brought to me, I'm thinking now what's going to work now, what's also going to work 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So you have to have a long-term perspective in creating solutions. And I find that translates real well over to the school board because, these are long-term investments. in our children and their long-term commitments, because things that you put into a place, you can't just sort of put in one program this year and then switch back and forth and back and forth. You don't make any progress that way. You have to sit down, you have to really think through what a solid approach is based on evidence, like I do in my professional life, and then develop a plan and have specific goals to try to work toward that plan, put the plan in effect, and stick with it with fidelity.
Great, thank you. So Dick, now that you've been engaged with the school corporation for several years and have served in this role, talk a little bit about how the corporation looks today compared to what it looked several years ago. What are some of the main things that are different about today's school corporation?
There's a lot more community engagement, than there was the first time that I served on the board. And a lot of that, it came from this community collaborating committee where we went out in the community and how do you see the schools? How do you want the schools to operate? What do you need back from the schools? And the responses we got: we need more transparency, we need more accountability, we need more information. What we did, and this is something that Dean Spiker started back when he was superintendent, and it continues, are work groups. You have an issue that impacts the children in school operations, and how do you solve it? Do you just go get 2 or 3 people together in a back room and make a decision? No, that's not the best way to do it, because we affect the entire community. The entire community supports us. The entire community benefits from us. So what you do is you form a work group or a committee around a specific issue, and then you bring in people who are impacted by that. And that's not just going to be people in central office, not just people in the schools. It's going to be business people. It'll be parents. It'll be teachers. It'll be people who are just don't have any other connection to the schools other than being a taxpayer. And you get their input, and they work on a solution, and they recommend it up to the school board. And for example, these community collaborating decisions, or solutions we set up, they were all adopted. You get a good, solid, well-rounded evaluation of issues when you approach things that way, more collectively rather than ground up rather than top down. You have to get some instruction and guidance from the top, perhaps, but we try to have a lot more community impact, feedback and impact. Another thing is children have much more diverse needs now. It's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, we have social emotional care that we have to provide for kids. A lot of our people will ask, well, what's the most pressing needs? And it's easy to look at, well, it's money, it's COVID and things, but the long-term systemic pressing need is the welfare of our kids. And our kids come to us with a lot of different kinds of needs that often express themselves in poor academic performance, maybe behavioral issues. And more children, it's because more children than ever before, and seems to be growing rather than not, are experiencing stressful events in their life. Things, hunger, homelessness, frequent moves, emotional tension, within the family. And those things can decrease their ability to cope. They can decrease their ability to regulate their emotions or think rationally. And our obligation is to seek, and understand how to address those factors on an individualized child basis in order to support that child, and help equip them with maybe the coping deficits that they need in order to succeed, or to understand the issues that are behind them and may contribute to issues with performance or behavior. So one of the things that we've been doing, committed to, and it's a systemic kind of a thing. It's across all the schools, across all the grades, is in addressing the whole child rather than just the head, but there's the internal, there's the heart as well, and making a greater commitment to social emotional learning and support. And it's a big deal, and it's a high hill to climb, and there's a lot of training that's involved. It's a cultural perspective that we're trying to develop, and that's part of our whole approach to maintaining a culture of excellence in Mishawaka with high expectations and a lot of support for our people to meet those expectations.
Great, I appreciate that, and kind of morphed into my next question a little bit. So you touched on or finances. We didn't really get to finances, but that has been a challenge for all K through 12 systems. So can you do two things? Maybe talk about the challenge of finance, but then also maybe talk about the opportunities, not necessarily related to finance, but just related to the corporation as a whole. And are there exciting opportunities out there that should be on the radar for the next school board?
Yeah. Financing comes in sort of two areas. It's the instructional, the classroom, and it's the facilities. And one of the real challenges that Mishawaka faces is that, unlike a lot of corporations, we have a very small footprint. Basically, by state law, our corporate boundaries were frozen to what the Mishawaka city limits were back in the early 1960s. So we have an 8.5 square mile footprint from which we draw students and from which we get tax support, property tax support. The challenge for Mishawaka is that's not a very large area. So for instructional purposes, money that goes into the classrooms, that's the teachers, the student, support, that comes basically from the state in terms of a per student dollar amount that we get each year. In Mishawaka, it's somewhere around $6,700 per student. That's based on from the state on property taxes and state income taxes, which can fluctuate. And now with the pandemic, property, we're going to collect probably less than the state's probably going to collect less in taxes and have less to pass on to us. So the greatest source of income to the schools is this per student count that comes from the state. And in Mishawaka, that makes it creates the pressing issue. First, we need to retain the students that we have who are living within that 8.5 square miles. But fortunately, we also have school choice, so we're able to attract students from outside of that district. And the way that we do that, and we've been working on this very diligently for the last 4 years, is to work toward making School City of Mishawaka the destination of choice for people who want to have the best quality individualized education for their children, and focus on customer service to the kids and to their families. And then also building on top of that's the retainage. Building on top of that is the recruitment. Encouraging people who maybe live over in the Penn boundaries or the South Bend boundaries to come to us because of the things that we can offer. Because we focus on individualized child. The difficulty with our property tax, people think, well, I'm paying property taxes, that's going to the classroom. But what really doesn't, property taxes go toward supporting our facilities. And we're drawing from a very small area here, that 8.5 square miles. There are 286 school districts in Indiana, and we are in the bottom 10, not 10%, but bottom 10 of the amount of assessed valuation behind each child, which makes it very hard to maintain our facilities. But part of what we do is, people invest. They live where they want their children to go to school. We have good schools. It attracts people. That increases property values. That increases, what comes back to the schools. But that's also always a major issue for us is the property tax-based support.
Great.
Why we had the referendum several years ago in order to put us in the position we're in now, where we're able to go one-to-one with technology for students, which ended up being a terrific. I wish we could say we foresaw the future, but we didn't. But it put us in a great place now because of the need for so much virtual learning that we were able to put those things in place. And and that was because this community supported us with the referendum to support the tax, what would otherwise be insufficient tax-based revenue.
Yep. Great. Dick, in our last 60 seconds or so, so elections are about choices, and people are going to go to the ballot box and choose their favorite candidate. Tell them why Dick Currey should have a chance to continue to serve on the school board.
Well, we all care about the kids, so I guess what you look at is what differentiates us. I have experience, serving, the schools in a variety of capacities, both not only as a school board member, but out as an active citizen supporter through these community collaborative, all the town hall meetings and all. I have through that, going back even further into when I was on the Education Foundation, I have a lot of experience, with school issues. During that time, there's a knowledge base, and it takes a while to develop that knowledge base. And so, knowledge and experience do count, and how you're able to address and do your job. I think as far as professional, my profession, the way I just did my regular job, I look at issues and the training I have to have for that, and the skills I have to use there to solve problems translate very easily to the schools. I self-employed, so I have time to be able to devote to the schools, and it takes a considerable amount of time. And I'm not real self-promotional,
Yeah,
but
no,
that's sort of it in a nutshell.
That's great. Well, Dick, we're grateful for the time you spent with us today. Thank you in particular for your great service to the community for the years that you've served. We know that our kids are better outcomes because of the good work that you're doing, and really appreciate of that. We wish you best of luck as Election Day approaches, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, thank you. And thank you for creating this opportunity for all of us to address the voters and the taxpayers.